In the top stories, roads upgraded in constituency number 7. St. Kitts welcomes the Carnival Vista. And NEMA talks tsunami readiness with local community group. The details on these stories and more after the break. Hello and welcome to the ZIZ Channel 5 newscast. I'm Carla Barrage. On Tuesday, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Timothy Harris toured the newly paved main road leading to the Grange Nursing Home and Healthcare Facility and the newly paved side roads that lead into Otley's Housing Extension. Prime Minister Harris, who is also parliamentary representative for the area, said he was pleased by this accomplishment. He said, quote, "The Grange Health Facility came at great sacrifice to the proprietors, particularly Mrs. Leader, who wanted to give back to her country via a high-quality service for the elderly in particular. She made the investment, but the quality of the road was a drawback to her business, as well as a terrible inconvenience to those who need to drive to and fro," end quote. Owner of the Grange, Mrs. Patricia Richards Leader, thanked the Prime Minister for the newly paved road.
I'm very excited actually, and I feel, what a wonderful Christmas gift. Not just to me, but really for the residents of the Grange and also for the extension of the Grange. What a wonderful gift. I'm really, grateful for this administration to really listen to us at last, and we are so really grateful. I mean, the road doesn't lead to nowhere. It leads to a very beautiful establishment.
The Prime Minister also thanked the Minister of Public Infrastructure, Honorable Ian Liburd, for his timely response to the project. While at the Grange Nursing Home and Healthcare Facility, Prime Minister Harris interacted with the residents and their care providers. The Grange, which was established 17 years ago, has over 30 residents from St. Kitts and Nevis, the Caribbean region, and the United States. On Wednesday, St. Kitts welcomed for the very first time the Carnival Vista, which has a maximum capacity of nearly 4,000 passengers. The Carnival Vista is from the Carnival Cruise Line and is scheduled to make 3 other calls to St. Kitts this cruise season. Minister of Tourism, Honorable Lindsay Grant, said he was extremely pleased to welcome the Carnival Vista to St. Kitts. He reminded stakeholders in tourism industry to provide the best possible service to visitors to ensure that we sustain our reputation as the most welcoming Eastern Caribbean cruise destination. Last week, the St. Kitts cruise sector experienced a historic projection of 16,000 visitors in one day from 5 cruise ships. On Wednesday, St. Kitts saw the arrivals of the Celebrity Eclipse, Costa Fabulosa, Royal Clipper, and the Carnival Vista. According to a statement from the Tourism Authority, St. Kitts is on pace for another record-breaking year in cruise passenger arrivals. Cruise ships will make a total of 391 calls to St. Kitts this season, with 16 new ships arriving here for the very first time. Tsunami readiness and response formed part of a presentation by the Deputy National Disaster Coordinator, Clarice Langley-Stevens, to the Rotary Club of Liamiga, St. Kitts, on Wednesday. The presentation was made at a Rotary Club breakfast sitting, which was hosted at the Royal Beach Golf Club, Frigate Bay. This is part of an ongoing partnership between the Rotary Club and the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, with regard to the sharing of information on aspects of comprehensive disaster management, CDM.
Under the umbrella of comprehensive disaster management, St. Kitts and Nevis finds itself a part of carrying out the mandate of CDMA through ensuring that as a disaster office that we have access to 3 basic things, and that would be a policy that governs disaster management and the agency or focal points that are charged with the responsibility, such as NEMA, as well as a volunteer-based program and an ongoing awareness and education campaign for all known hazards.
Mrs. Langley-Stevens shared with the gathering copies of the recently developed tsunami evacuation maps while explaining the roles and responsibilities of persons and communities in the event of a tsunami impact.
I think for me, the joy of knowing that organizations, prominent organizations such as the Rotarians, still have that vested interest in understanding what is happening at a national level, particularly as it relates to disaster management. And so NEMA prides itself in partnering with those stakeholders to be able to share that type of information.
St. Kitts Nevis received tsunami ready status late last year following the completion of some required tasks, including developing the maps in collaboration with the Physical Planning Department and a number of local and overseas stakeholders. The tsunami evacuation maps are available at NEMA headquarters, Limekiln, while the updated e-maps will be made available online in the upcoming months. After the break, Deputy Commissioner says police investigations require time to ensure the rights of all involved, and the Sandy Point Primary School's Literacy Week of activities continue. We'll tell you more when we come back. Deputy Commissioner of Police Hilroy Brandy says the force takes every allegation against a police officer seriously, but investigations take time and he's calling for patience. His comments come as an investigation is underway into an accident in Nevis involving a police vehicle and claims that a civilian was robbed by officers. On Thursday, police reported that officers responded to a call about a suspicious vehicle in Wallins Village and found a man alone in the vehicle. The police say they gave the man a lift home, but as they were leaving, he climbed onto the roof of the police vehicle, struck an officer in the face, and that led to the crash. However, the police have also stated that the man filed a report against the officers involved, claiming that they robbed him. Deputy Commissioner Brandy said, quote, "Our officers are sworn to protect the public, and the police service takes every allegation against an officer as a most serious concern and follows with an appropriate investigation. We hope that the public and the media can resist the desire to make judgment at this time and let the matter be fully investigated," end quote. Deputy Brandy said investigations require time and thoroughness to ensure the protection of all the rights of all involved. Chairman of the National Carnival Committee, Noah Mills, says it is essential to give back to participants who contribute to the Sugar Mass festivities. Mills made the comments while appearing on this week's edition of Working for You on ZIZ Radio. Reflecting on Sugar Mass 44 and 45, Mills said that the committee was pleased to financially assist persons who participated in regional competitions.
One of the things that we really enjoyed is giving back to our participants. For Sugar Mass 44 and the winners, we were able to send, I think it's a record, 8 ambassadors regionally.
Sure.
And we had 6 regional pageants. And from the 6 regional pageants, we were able to secure 4 crowns. We are very proud of the fact that after they would have put in so much into making the carnival product a success, we are able to financially assist them in going overseas and showcasing not only their talents, but
while on the topic of finances, Mills also used the opportunity to highlight his committee's ability to provide a financial statement to the Ministry of Culture.
We were able to present the ministry with a profit and loss statement in April and May of this year, which spoke to Sugar Mass 44. And that again, from their standpoint, was impressive. Not only did they have a budget prior, but they had financial statement, profit and loss after, to do some sort of analysis.
Mills thanks his team for their support and all who contributed to both Sugar Mass 44 and Sugar Mass 45. Meanwhile, winners of various competitions for Sugar Mass 45 will receive their prizes at the St. Kitts Nevis National Carnival Committee hosts the Sugar Mass 45 prize giving on Friday. The event is expected to feature performances by a number of local artists and calypsonians who were instrumental in the 2016-2017 carnival season. Prizes are expected to be awarded to winners of the Senior Calypso Monarch, Soca Monarch, Junior Calypso Monarch, National Carnival Queen, Miss National Swimwear, Mr. GQ, and various street activities. The prize-giving ceremony will officially bring the activities of Sugar Mass 45 to an end. The Sugar Mass 45 prize-giving takes place on Friday, 20th January at Bank Street at 7:30 p.m. The Sandy Point Primary School Literacy Week of activities continued on Thursday with an open day held at the school's grounds. Parents and community members were invited to visit the school where they read stories and literature to the students. The Literacy Week continues with a parade on Friday morning through the streets of Sandy Point and a grade competition where students will be depicting fairy tale stories. The Sandy Point Primary School's Literacy Week is being held under the theme Swing into Literacy, Lights, Camera, Read. Coming up, mixed Cuban reactions to the change in U.S. immigration policy and concerns raised about bleaching cream in Guyana. The details when we come back.
Need a new stove, fridge, bed, or TV? Short on cash? Come to Courts and let's get it done! Trade in your old items for 15% off the purchase of a new one and get what you need now with Courts Ready Finance. So let's get it done! Only at Courts, bringing value home.
There has been a mixed response to the U.S. government's surprise move to end a policy that allowed Cubans to enter the U.S. without visas. The so-called wet foot, dry foot policy came to an immediate end last week as a normalization in relations between the U.S. and Cuba continues. Al Jazeera's Andy Gallagher reports from Miami, Florida.
For more than 20 years, Cubans fleeing their home have enjoyed special status in the U.S. 1 foot on dry land was essentially a passport to a new life and eventual citizenship. But 2 years ago, a normalization in relations between the US and Cuba began in an historic turn of events that ended decades of animosity. Now, after months of negotiations, the so-called wet foot, dry foot policy has ended. And in Little Havana, reactions are mixed.
But I think anything that's going to level the playing field where we're all the same, Cubans, Jamaicans, Haitians, anybody from all around the world, around the Caribbean, anybody who wants to come to this country has to kind of go about it the right way.
There's a lot of them that come for economy. And like I say, a year and a day after, they go back.
The number of Cubans trying to get to the US last year doubled, with many believing that the policy was about to change. But supporters of normalization say the fact that the Cuban government has now agreed to take back those turned away is a sign of progress. The reaction to the end of the wet foot, dry foot policy here in Little Havana has been fairly muted, but it's left this community with two important questions. One being, what will President-elect Trump do? And most analysts tell me they think he will keep the policy in place. The other question is whether now Cubans will stop trying to enter the United States. Professor Suchlicki from the Institute of Cuban-American Studies thinks Cubans will still leave in big numbers, but he says this latest move may force change on the island.
The American policymakers want the Cuban to look internally to their problems, not externally. And most people now are thinking of getting out of Cuba, visiting Florida, moving permanently to Florida. So this will force them to look inward and to put pressure on the regime.
The Cuban government called the repeal of wet foot, dry foot an important step in advancing relations between the two countries. Those critical of normalization say reforms in Cuba are still badly needed, but for now the US embargo remains in place. Andy Gallagher, Al Jazeera, Miami, Florida.
Concerns are being raised in Guyana about the use of bleaching cream. It's just a matter of time before the government analyst Food and Drug Department moves against the importation of bleaching cream. Wyden James reports.
It's a trend that is beginning to find a permanent place in Guyanese society. It sometimes transforms one's appearance and gives one a lighter skin tone. But it has some dangerous side effects. The government analyst Food and Drug Department plans to prohibit bleaching products from entering the local market.
At this point in time, and we're working assiduously with the Ministry of Health to ensure that we have the requisite battery of inspectors that they can now be assigned to specific areas of investigation, and so to wean out those products from our society.
Head of the Food and Drug Department, Mr. Marlon Cole. Mr. Cole is urging consumers who use the product to refrain from using it.
Yeah, we're very concerned, but it is a public health issue, and over time they can have issues related to skin cancer, etc. Research will show that they can be debilitating effects of these products over time. but it's just a matter of us identify those products with those type of active ingredients that would result in such and to work on them.
And for persons who might be objecting the move, Mr. Cole said that the law provides for an inspector to withhold assent to the importation of that product into the jurisdiction.
So it's just a matter of time, more resources to the department where we can concentrate on those things and where we can have inspectors who are assigned to investigate and go after those specific imports that are detrimental to the consuming public.
Mr. Cole says the move is intended to keep consumers out of harm's way. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Coming up, unaccompanied refugee children roam streets of Serbia's Belgrade, and is the US-UK special relationship in doubt? The details when we come back. Aid workers in Serbia are struggling to cope with the numbers of unaccompanied children living on the streets. Most have been sent by their parents to escape fighting in countries such as Afghanistan and Pakistan. But the children, almost all boys, often do not want the help they are being offered. More in this report.
Of the 1,000 or more males living in total squalor in central Belgrade, the vast majority are young, and many of the young are under 18. So, are they children? Or are they not? Look at this 10-year-old Afghan boy, like a figure from Dickensian London.
And your father?
Afghanistan. No parents with him. He's the nephew of another man in his group.
With his family here or by himself?
No. Only alone. Alone. Or this 13-year-old huddled round a fire, again with men not his father. They all have something in common. Their parents sent them to Europe. Miriana spends her time trawling the camp for children she can offer help to, but since she started doing it, she learned something lost on many in the West.
It is true that their parents forced them to leave home because they wanted to save their lives, but these children, they told us that in their culture, at their age, their parents don't consider them children. It isn't the same as here.
Miriana found one boy of 6 who'd made the journey alone. In the queue for food, you look at their faces, and the line between teenage and adult blurs immediately. They assume they are refugees who should be working in Europe. For them, age is a detail.
There's clearly an enormous moral conundrum for aid workers used to dealing with children. The Western view would be that anybody under 18 is potentially vulnerable and in need of help, and yet they, and potentially the families that they come from, regard them as being adults from maybe 12 or 13 years old and perfectly capable of travelling overseas to try to seek their fortune. Marrying those two conflicting things together is almost irreconcilable.
Still, there are those who want to offer children a childhood, and this centre is trying to give it back to them. Here, children with family further west are reunited, and they try to work out what to do with boys like this, all aged between 11 and 15. Their parents are either in camps in Turkey or at home in Pakistan and Afghanistan.
They are just a child, you know. After a few days, when you spend with this child, you can find out he's a child like a Serbian child or any other child. He needs love, he needs attention, he needs everything like the other child. So they are very grateful if you help them.
Ask the refugees how to keep families together, and they will say the answer is to open the borders, but that won't happen with attitudes in Europe as they are. It all demonstrates how vast is the continental divide over the rights of the child. Lawrence Lee, Al Jazeera, Belgrade.
What does Donald Trump mean for the UK and their much-cherished special relationship? It's been a cornerstone of the Western alliance since 1945, but the US president-elect has articulated positions that are directly opposed to Britain's interests. More in this report.
A unique, strange landscape, but these Scottish sand dunes are owned by Donald Trump. He's turned some of them into a golf course. That upset the environmentalists, but they're not the only ones who are unhappy around here. Retired chef Susan Munro takes me up the earth wall that Mr. Trump's people have built in front of her house, blocking her sea view. He'd tried to buy the house when he built the course, but Susan, who's lived here for more than 30 years, refused to sell.
A bit of a bully, and he likes to get his own way. If he doesn't, the toys get thrown out of the pram until he gets his own way.
There's plenty of suspicion and hostility towards Donald Trump in this part of Scotland, but that suspicion is shared by many in the heart of the British political establishment. In Westminster last year, MPs debated whether to ban Donald Trump from the UK because of his Islamophobic remarks.
His words are poisonous.
A ridiculous xenophobe.
This man is crazy.
Donald Trump is an idiot.
Nigel Farage, the man who brought us Brexit, now with his own radio show, is an admirer of Donald Trump. He's had better access to the president-elect than the British government and says the new administration will prioritise friendship with Britain.
They see it as being their number one relationship in the world. You know, they know their history. They understand the triumphs and tragedies that we've served together. Their instincts are that this is the one country that's been our greatest ally over the course of the last 100 years. Let's get it back where it ought to be.
The special relationship. But with Britain heading out of the EU and with Donald Trump so, well, unpredictable, can we really turn the clock back to these golden years of transatlantic cooperation?
If you take Brexit and what I think will be the inevitable diplomatic political diminishing of the UK and its influence, and you add that into that, this sense of a president of America who kind of thinks it's all about him, I think that makes for quite a potentially troubling start to an important relationship.
Of course, Britain's friendship with the United States is about more than just two leaders. There's history, families, language. The ties will survive, but they may be tested by stormy times ahead. Barnaby Phillips, Al Jazeera, Aberdeenshire.
Up next in sports, WICB announced squad and Egypt puts retired football star on a terrorist list. Stay tuned.
Need a new stove, fridge, bed, or TV? Short on cash? Come to Courts and let's get it done! Trade in your old items for 15% off the purchase of a new one and get what you need now with Courts Ready Finance. So let's get it done! Only at Courts, bringing value home.
The West Indies Cricket Board has announced the West Indies Under-19 squad to participate in the upcoming Regional Super 50 tournament. The 14-member squad includes 5 players who were part of the team, which won the ICC Under-19 World Cup in Bangladesh last year. These are all-rounders Shama Springer and Kimo Paul, middle-order batsman Kirsten Kalitaran, wicket-keeper batsman Emmanuel Stewart, and left-arm fast bowler Obin McCoy. The West Indies Under-19s are participating in this tournament as part of their preparation for the ICC Under-19 World Cup to be played in New Zealand next year. Springer, Paul and McCoy will not be eligible for that tournament, but have been selected as part of their continued development and monitoring. Head coach Graeme West said, quote, "We have a really fantastic group of players selected for this tournament and we believe they will do very well. We had a camp in Grenada before Christmas, which went really well. We will have another camp here in Antigua in the build-up to this event, which should get us in the right frame of mind as we play against older and more experienced opposition," end quote. The full team is made up of Tishon Aline, Alec Athanase, Joshua Bishop, Cheyenne Brathwaite, Kirsten Kalitaran, Mikhail Lewis, Obin McCoy, Matthew Patrick, Kimo Paul, Javor Royal, Javier Spencer, Shema Springer, Emmanuel Stewart, Bashkar Yadram. Defending champion Novak Djokovic suffered a shock defeat by world number 117 Denis Istomin in the second round of the Australian Open. The 6-time winner struggled for the rhythm and lost 7-6, 10-8, 5-7, 2-6, 7-6, 7-5, 6-4 in 4 hours and 48 minutes. It is the first time Djokovic, 29, has lost in the second round of a Grand Slam since 2008 in Wimbledon. The results leaves world number 1 Andy Murray as favorite to win his first Australian Open title in Melbourne. It is only the second time in 7 years that Djokovic has lost to a player ranked outside of the top 100. He deserved to win, no doubt. He was a better player in the clutch moments, said Djokovic. Egyptians are voicing their support for retired football star Mohamed Aboutrika after a court in Cairo added him to a terrorist watch list. Here's more.
To many Egyptians, Mohamed Aboutrika is a football legend who's widely regarded as one of their greatest players. In Cairo, his fans are shocked that the government has put him on a terror list.
This is a stupid decision, and those who took it are failures. When a well-behaved player like Aboutrika is being called a terrorist, why is this happening? What did he do?
Is this what Aboutrika deserves for everything that he's done for this country? And by the way, his popularity is higher than that of the president.
Aboutrika is accused of financially supporting the banned Muslim Brotherhood during a 6-week protest at Rabat al-Adawiya Mosque more than 3 years ago. At the time, Muslim Brotherhood supporters were calling for the reinstatement of President Mohamed Morsi, who was deposed in a coup after mass protests against his rule. Security forces raided the camps. Human Rights Watch estimates that 1,000 people were killed. Some Egyptians support the decision against Aboutrika.
I want him imprisoned. He stood against the country. He supported the Brotherhood. He was with them in Rabat and he donated his money to them. We shouldn't let it slide just because he's a football player.
Aboutrika's lawyer says his client has not been convicted of a crime, which is a precondition for placement on the government's terror list.
To place someone on the terror list on the basis of a malicious verbal statement made by an anonymous person and in the absence of due investigations or valid evidence or a court ruling is an express violation of law and in breach of the Constitution.
Aboutrika is working in Gabon as a commentator for the Africa Cup of Nations. He denies all the charges and his lawyer says he'll appeal against the court's decision. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
When we come back, we'll have another look at the stories that made the headlines. Recapping the top stories. Roads upgraded in constituency number 7. St. Kitts welcomes the Carnival Vista. And Nima talks tsunami readiness with local community group. And that's the end of the ZIZ Channel 5 newscast. Thank you for joining us. I'm Carla Berridge. Goodbye.